So hey there fellow YouTubers, it's Frank Bush here again. So in this video, in the next series of videos I plan on releasing, I'm going to talk about solar power production. So for this video I've got some small portable backpackable solar units with batteries and solar panels and that type of thing. I'm going to walk through the different ones that I have and the different capacities that they have, and then in future videos that I plan on releasing over the next couple months, I'm going to do an entire series of walking all the way from small portable units such as these right up to how to do off-grid power production that's, you know, produces a usable amount of power to light and cook food and those types of things. So like I say, in this video it'll primarily be all lightweight portable units. So stay tuned and I'll walk through each one in detail, yeah? So we're lucky in this day and age, we can find hundreds of different resources that sell this type of technology. So getting access to these off eBay and Amazon and that kind of stuff isn't difficult at all. But I'm going to walk through kind of a small, compact, not much bigger than a cell phone, fits in your pocket, up to a little larger scale where I'm producing a bit more watts, and then up to what I consider probably the largest mobile setup that you would do that's still really lightweight and you can just throw in the backpack. So I'll walk through each one of these devices in detail and talk about how much power they produce, you know, what the realistic expectations are of them when you're out in the field. So stay tuned, I'll go through each one in detail and describe exactly what kind of capacity you can get out of these. Okay, so for the first item I'm going to discuss in this video, it's going to be this Bear Grylls 8,000 milliampere hour power bank. It's, as you can see, this is my cell phone. It's not much bigger than a cell phone. It's really quite small. But when it comes to the specs of it, you're looking at a battery capacity that has 8,000 milliampere hours, and that's at 3.7 volts. So it's about 30 watts worth of power that this unit can store. And it has built-in solar panels that come with it. And these solar panels produce about 4 watts worth of power. Hopefully the camera's picking this up. You can see as soon as I open it up, the charge starts happening. But the solar output is about 4 watts at a 5 volts. And then there's 4 of the solar panels that are about 1 watt a piece, and they're a detachable unit, so I can unclip them off right here. There's little plastic kind of braces that hold them to the battery, but I can easily pop it off so I don't have the solar panels at all. But to me, given the size of them, it is what it is. So the micro USB input is 5 volts 2 amp, and the USB output is 5 volt at 2.1 amp, so about 10.5 watts. You know, there's 2 ports that are USB and 1 micro USB, and I'll show that all in detail here in a second. And then there's an LED torch that sits on the back, an LED light if you will, that throws off 180 lumens. The LED indicator and the solar battery charge indicator are here, and you know, the claim is that when this is plugged into the wall, you'll be able to use it for about 4.5 hours, and that you can charge the average cell phone in about 1.2 hours, you know, that has say a 2,000 milliampere hour battery. So I'll just kind of lift this up a bit and just show you the inputs that it has and that kind of thing. So you can see here, there's a micro USB and then 2 USB slots that are available on it. And then I'll kind of shift angles here and I'll talk about what I've found when I'm out in the field and using this in a practical sense. So I am at a dog park. If you hear a bunch of noise in the background, there's lots of people out with their dogs and that kind of stuff. But I'll kind of show you, generally speaking, what I would normally use this for. I'll plug in a couple of USB plugs. I've got 1 micro USB, and this is an electric lighter, so I'll just plug that into there, and it's starting to take a charge. And then I'll just use a USB-C because that's what my phone uses, and plug that in. And you can see, really simple, just like you plug in at home. And I'm able to charge my devices. Generally speaking, you heard the ding hopefully, so let you know that yeah, things have lit up and they're charging. So generally speaking, something like this, I find these solar panels, because they only produce 4 watts of power, they generally don't produce enough electricity to fill this up at any real timely fashion. To give you an idea, to charge this cell phone, it normally would say take about 10.5 watts of power per hour, whereas these only produce 4 per hour. And you know, when it comes to the battery banks themselves, even though it says 8,000 milliampere hour for the battery's capacity, that's at 3.7 volts. So when you're running most of these devices, like USB devices, they're running at 5 volts. So the actual capacity you're getting out of these, because it'll step up the voltage, which will decrease the amperage to give you the voltage you need to run and power these devices. So generally speaking, I find with a device like this, it's good for if I'm going out for a weekend, I've got my cell phone and say, you know, an electric lighter with me, and I just want to have it where I can charge up these devices over a weekend's period where I'm not really relying heavily on the solar. I mean, to charge this device off of a solar panel would take days. It's great for their marketing and the sell of it, of yeah, we have solar power, you know, integrated into this battery bank, but the actual amount of usable power this thing produces just really isn't enough. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, if I was totally off grid and I was in a desperate situation, I would definitely want to have this capability attached to my battery bank, where even if it took 2 or 3 days, if it gave it the ability to charge this up fully, that allows me to kind of get up and going. But generally speaking, I'll just pack this with my cell phone and use it as kind of a backup battery for my cell phone if I know I'm going to be off grid for a weekend. I wouldn't generally see counting on these solar panels as producing enough wattage to be useful. They just don't. You know, in my experience in the field, I've left these sitting out where this battery's been pretty dead, nice sunny day, and I've been at a camp where I know that they're going to get good sun on them, and I'm lucky if this thing's a third to half full by the end of the day. Like I say, they really just don't produce a lot of power. It's more gimmick than anything else, but it is the lightest weight option that I know of that gives you, you know, 4 watts worth of solar and battery capacity that's enough to charge this cell phone I'd say maybe 2 or 3 times realistically. You know, it's so it is just kind of good to amp up cell phones and that kind of thing, or if you're like I am and you like to have the electronic lighters, you know, it gives you an extended use where you know that you're not going to run out of power for this thing over the span of a couple days. But so that really kind of covers this small scale one. Like I say, I really would only use this if I wanted to go really ultra light and I knew I was going to be out for a short period of time. I wouldn't really be relying on these solar. They're nice to have in a pinch if you're really desperate for electricity and you know that you're not going to be on the grid for a while, but not something I would bank on for the longer term, if you will. So I'll cut scenes here and I'll switch over to the next stage up and kind of walk through that in detail now as well, yeah? Okay, so for the next couple items I'm going to talk about in this video, it's going to be this Bear Grylls 20,000 milliampere hour power bank with C-type charge control. So this battery has a little bit more capacity and can output a little better. I've used this out in the field. You might have seen this in previous videos of mine. I found this to be a real workhorse for what it is. So the battery capacity is 20,000 milliampere hours, and that's at 3.7 volts. So it holds about 74 watt hours worth of energy. There's a micro USB input that is 5 volt at 2 amps, and the USB output on the ports along the top there, they all put out 5 volt at 3 amp. So, and there's a USB type C input. I'll walk through kind of moving it around and showing it all, but I'll just go through the specs right now. The USB type C input, it can handle say 5 volts and 3 amps, or you can also have 20 volts at 1.8 amps, so it can do like a rapid charging, if you will, of this unit. It's one of the things I really like about this battery bank, actually. And the same kind of thing for the output. There's variable from 5 volt, 9 volt, 12 volt. You know, it's the nature of the Type C USB. So like I say, there's 4 USB ports, there's 1 Type C USB and 1 micro USB. Now the recharge time on this, if it's plugged into a wall, is about 7 hours if the power is delivered through through the Type-C USB because it does allow for that higher wattage to go into the battery. For an average phone charge time, it takes about 45 minutes of a standard 2000 milliampere hour battery. You know, it comes in a waterproof case and that, which is just back in the house. I don't normally use that, but I use this unit in conjunction with these 21 watt Anker solar panels. So I'll cut angles here and I'll open this up and show you the Anker panels in more detail. Yeah. So I've just opened up the Anker solar panels here. As you can see, the panels themselves are a fair bit bigger than the small unit I had previously shown. These Anker 21 watt 2-port USB portable solar charger with foldable panels. The power port solar for iPhone, you know, it'll charge phones, tablets, and that kind of stuff. And I'll just kind of show you now there's 2 USB outputs here. You can see the red lights on where it's taking the charge. But just the same, I've got a USB cable extension where I can easily turn around and plug in directly to the units. So as you could hear, I'm directly charging my cell phone now without any battery involvement. But typically speaking, I would normally plug this into my battery bank and then use my battery bank to be supplying the power out to the other items. So I'll just kind of wire that up and then show you in detail and kind of give you a breakdown of how I find this works when I'm out in the field. So I'll just simply detach my cell phone here. And there's the USB-C on the side here, and that's where I would plug directly into that. That allows me to charge this battery bank, and I can see by the, I don't know if the camera's picking that up at all, but hopefully I can, there's lights that are glowing right along here. It shows me that the battery is taking a charge. And the nice part about this setup is I can turn around and plug in multiple devices and have them charging at the same time and kind of daisy chain things. I brought along a little bag of cords and that kind of stuff to kind of give you an example. And I've used this in previous videos, I do believe multiple occasions now, where I find it really handy. Like I say, plug in my cell phone, plug in my lighter. I'll just grab my tablet here. Let's see if I get another USB-C in here. Plug this in, and this is USB-C as well, so I can get rapid charging for the tablets and those kind of things. But all my devices are actively charging right now. Hopefully I'm fitting this all in on the camera okay. But it gives me the capacity where I'm charging the tablet, the cell phone, my lighter, I'm charging up this battery bank, and it's all feeding off these solar panels. Now, I've shown this in previous videos where I believe I did it when I showed stealth camping in my truck and that kind of stuff. But this kind of setup really allows me to go for extended periods of up to say about a week or so before I really want to lay off my power consumption. But I've used this for extended periods where this solar panel has really just kept this battery going, and this battery's driven all my other devices. I do find this grylls battery, like I say, it's the same kind of thing where, you know, they always say it's 20,000 milliampere hours, but that is rated at 3.7 volts. You know, all these devices are 5 volts, so you're not going to get a true, you know, 20 ampere hours, if you will, to, you know, simplify the terminology. You're not going to get a full 20 ampere hours out of this at a 5 volt rate. You know, it does diminish because you've boosted up the voltage to get these USB devices powered. But I do find for, if I was going for a week or so, you know, that kind of thing, this is really good at giving me that kind of greater capacity and energy independence. It allows me to, you know, I still have to be mindful of my energy consumption, of course, but it allows me to go for more extended periods of time and still at a lightweight package. So I do find this setup has been really good. I've had it out in the field down to 0 degrees at least, if not lower. That's Celsius I'm talking, and it's performed well. The one thing I do find when it comes to any of these solar panels, you know, this is rated at 21 watts, and that's really what they claim. Hold on, sorry, the breeze is picking up a bit. That's really what they claim. If this was angled perfectly at the sun and just the perfect angle and that kind of stuff, generally speaking, I find that these the rated claims of the watts on these, generally, if you get 50 to 60% of what it's claimed to be, you're doing okay. So in this regard, you know, when it's, obviously I'll stop and angle it so I can maximize my solar power. But realistically, even though this is rated for 21 watts, that's really under extremely ideal conditions. If you get, say, 12 to 15 watts out of this, you know, anywhere from 50 to 65% efficiency out of the panel of what's rated, you're getting good figures from my perspective. So when it comes to these panels, you know, don't expect it to give you exactly what they claim. There is losses that go on within the wiring and within the conversion of the voltages and those types of things that do play factor when it comes to the amount of overall power you're going to hold. But I have, like I said, used this out in the field for extended days, and it's been invaluable for keeping my devices going. I have, as you guys know, doing YouTube videos. The GoPro batteries are always a problem. I have a little USB driven GoPro battery charger that I can plug into this as well, and I simply, I'll just grab a spare battery I got in my pocket here. I simply plug the batteries right into this little unit. Yeah, they need a bit of charge anyways. And I can charge up 2 of the GoPro batteries. The yellow light's on, I don't know, hopefully the camera's catching that. But it allows me to charge up my GoPro batteries and my tablets and devices and all that stuff all at the same time. So when I'm out in the field doing these YouTube videos, quite often this is behind the scenes my power hub that I'm using because of the amount of power that I can output from this battery. I find the grylls 20,000 ampere or milliampere hour battery has been one of the best USB batteries I've ever acquired. I think it's around $100 or so, but I've used it for now, this is probably a year and a half, 2 years old, and it's been working like a charm. It's solid as a rock. It produces lots of power coming out of these outputs at 3 amps each, so it gives the power I need to power especially things like tablets and larger devices. It gives me the capacity to do all that comfortably. So I'll stop and cut here and switch up to the next level up, if you will, of this kind of setup, even though this battery is still my favorite battery that I use for USB stuff. Just kind of walk through the next step. So for the next items that I'm going to show in this video, this is the 20,000 milliampere hour Renogy battery bank. I actually prefer the grylls battery bank, but I had ordered a bunch of items from Renogy and they shipped me this for like $10. And so I can't complain. I'll just take the batteries whenever I can because I find them handy. And this one has a built-in solar panel right into it. But yet once again, just like the smaller grylls unit that I was talking about earlier in the video, you know, the wattage output of this is only 1.5 watts, so it's not really producing a usable amount of power. You know, when it comes to the micro USB input, it'll have an input that takes 5 volts and 2 amps, and it's variable. It'll go up to 9 volt at 2 amp or 12 volt at 1.5 amps. And the solar panel input, like I said, is 5 volts, and that's at 300 milliampere hours. There is a USB-C input that'll take a 5 volt at 3 amps. And this unit weighs about a pound. It's very close to a pound in weight. I would say if it's not a pound, it's right near it. It is a lithium ion battery, so you're going to be able to get a couple thousand charges out of this. Now this isn't like a lithium iron phosphate where you're going to get up to 4,000 cycles or so. I'm only expecting to get maybe 1,000 cycle charges, maybe 1,500, 2,000 tops if I really treat this battery nicely. But normally I'll use these when I'm out in the field so they endure, you know, wet weather and cold climates and all that kind of stuff that are typically not really that great for these types of things. But when you're out in the bush, you want to have lightweight stuff that you can use. So it does have quite a bright LED light that sits onto the end of it. And see if I can catch that on camera. You can see that light throws a half decent amount of lumens off it. I don't know the exact rating of the lumens on it, but I know that it will kind of light up a camp, if you will. And then it's got a nice little silicone waterproof kind of door to get access to the USB-C, the micro, and the standard USB. And like I say, I do prefer the Bear Grylls battery bank to this unit because it has more outputs and it has a higher wattage input. I do find, generally speaking, this is my favorite battery for when I'm out in the field. It's, you know, the shape of it, it's a bit thicker in thickness, but for the size overall, I find this is really easy to stuff into a bag, and it's just it's there and usable. The main thing I find with this kind of setup, because the battery capacitance is about the same, is really these Renogy solar panels. This is probably about the highest wattage solar panels that I've found that are really lightweight and portable still. You know, they have 100-watt ones that are foldable and stuff, but they start to get awkward when you're wanting to fit them into a bag. Whereas, like I say, this size is still very compact. I can slide this in along the back of my backpack and easily have it where I don't notice it being in there. One of the real gains that I do like about this setup is there's stands that exist on these panels that allow me to, let me just open this up. I've always got cables and wires for things, right? It's the nature of solar panels. And you can see here they have USB. There's like a quicker charge, but they're all about 2 amps to 3 amps, in around that range. And they have one that comes off externally that I have an extension already plugged on for the micro USB. But one of the stands is inside there, which I don't really like that much, to be quite honest, but it is what it is. So, but I do like the reality where I can pop these stands and set it so that it angles and positions to the sun better. Hopefully the camera's picking this up. Let me just check. Yeah, tweak the angle a bit. But one of the key things I really like about that, or about these panels, for one, the fact that they produce 30 watts, you know, that's what they're rated for. Realistically, 15 to 20 is the more realistic scenario. But I do like how they sit on these stands that allow it to angle it properly towards the sun. You know, when it comes to plugging in devices now, just the same as earlier, I can turn around and plug, you know, my devices directly into, this is just that electric lighter again, and I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but there's a little blue light on there. You can see that this lighter is taking a charge, and it's heavy clouds. I'll stop and show the angle of the clouds in a minute here, but just the same, I could turn around and plug directly into these devices if I didn't want to take along the larger batteries. And even with the cloudy conditions, it's still producing enough power to charge my phone, you know, without the additional battery bank being in play at all. And one of the good things I find, generally speaking, is I'll turn around and I'll take my devices like this, and I'll do exactly as I'm doing, where if I know that I don't have to have my device, you know, active with me when I'm at the camp, I'll leave them plugging and won't even run them through the battery banks. I'll just charge my battery bank all through the day. And there's enough cloud where I'm not able to charge all 3 of these at one time. There's just not enough sun for that right now. But that's one of the other things to kind of take into factor. You know, these solar panels are really rated for clear sunny days. There's not a cloud in the sky. You know, they do it all in labs and stuff, but when you get out in the field, to me, one of the key things I find is you want these panels to produce as much power as possible, because quite often you won't have ideal sun, there'll be clouds and those types of things, and you'll want to turn around and try to squeeze as much power out as you can, given that it's not ideal conditions. So I'll stop and kind of give my take on all this stuff as a summary, but it gives you an idea of, like I say, hopefully I'll you can see it angles it at a good maybe 45-50 degree angle, and it's adjustable on the Velcro. There's Velcro along here, which is never good when you're out in the woods, but I'd rather have some sort of clips that you could adjust for longevity's sake. But either way, I still like the fact that it is its own stand, you know. But when it comes to using all of these devices, you can definitely use them all. You know, if you're wanting to take, you know, 2 or 3 of these, this is, you know, rated at 30, you got 21 just between these 2 units. Now, separate from bringing along batteries, I've got, you know, rated at 50 watts worth of power. That's a significant amount of power to have when you're out in the field. As you can see, the light's on where the battery's taking a charge, so I'm happy in that regard of the sun slowly peeking through here and there. I will give a shot of that as well, of how cloudy it is, but hopefully this gives you an idea of kind of the scale and range you can use when you're out, you know, in the woods, and you still want to have electricity, but you want to have it be lightweight and stuff. Anything beyond about this scale, to me, starts to become too heavy. You know, if you're wanting to do an off-grid setup and stuff, this stuff isn't quite powerful enough to really run that. It just helps power your devices when you're out in the field. You know, you really want to step up to at least 12 volt DC, have deep cycle batteries, those types of things. But I'll be discussing all of that in greater detail in coming videos in the near future here. I just wanted to stop and make this video primarily about lightweight, mobile, portable solar power that you can use when you're out in the field. Taking a charge off of the 30-watt Renogy panels. It's almost a full battery to begin with, so it was already in good state, but hopefully the camera's picking that up. You can see the blue bars here along the top. It'll tell you how much charge is within those batteries, yeah? So, like I say, it's starting to get busy at the park. There's lots of kids and dogs and everything else around, so you're going to definitely hear an increase in noise. But hopefully that gives you kind of a breakdown of kind of the different types and scales, you know, that you can use for solar power when you're out in the field. Like I say, this is kind of really more of the ultra lightweight, small, portable. You step it up to more kind of larger / mid-size solar panels and larger battery banks, and then up to the even larger solar panels producing more power. My favorite combination out of all the gear that you see here is really the Renogy 30-watt solar panel in combination with the grylls 20,000 milliampere hour battery. That combination to me is probably about the best that I've come across to use when I'm out in the field. But either way, like I say, I've used all of these out in the field. They've all come in handy. They've all produced half decent power for me. You know, the one thing I really do like about this Renogy panel is the fact that not only does it produce the 30 watts and it has 3 inputs, whereas the Anker only has 2, but the fact that it has this stand that really positions things to be on a better angle to absorb the sun. You know, you'd be amazed at the power difference you have. You think just setting it down on a flat table, oh, it's going to get sun, but really you want to angle these things to be 90-degree angle to the sun so it is absorbing as much as possible, whereas the Renogy have kind of taken that into account by having those little stands on there. I really like that aspect of things. But either way, all of these devices can be useful when you're out in the field. It really depends on what your needs are. If you're pulling along a lot of electronics and, you know, you're heavy with that kind of stuff, I would highly recommend going with the grylls 20,000 milliampere hour battery and the Renogy 30-watt solar panel. But if you're looking at just doing something really small, you want to have it not much bigger than a cell phone that you're taking with you, this kind of option is good. Like I say, I can't really recommend the solar panels because they just don't produce enough power. But as you know, given a sunny day, they will produce power, and it will help you if you're desperate for electricity needs. So I'll wrap the video up at this point in time. But either way, I hope you enjoyed this content. Hopefully you got something out of it. I do plan on doing, like I say, more kind of advanced solar system setups, where in one of my next videos coming, I'm going to do an assembly into a crate where I'm producing 2.5 kilowatts of power, and that's all going to be in about a 70-pound package. So it's good enough for me to throw into the back of the truck. You know, it produces a lot of power and it can store a lot of power. So I'm going to walk through the details of that build in its entirety, and then I'm going to do some further videos on a bunch of different solar stuff that I like to use and have, and I'll walk through that and hopefully bring some people up to speed on, you know, off-grid power options and what's available to you.